Live. Now, a lot of people watch our replays. If you're watching our replays, just type in hashtag replay just so I know that you're watching.
Property guru George Markowski from Positive Property Solution joins us now. George, good morning to you.
How are you, George?
You've got to hang out with guys like George who know the numbers. Get the real numbers, the facts. Because I can talk to you about cash flow and all those things. George is better at that than me. The thing I'm ecstatic about George, he is a hardcore teacher. He really wants you to learn.
Okay, guys, we've got 10 seconds left. Can't wait to show you a great, amazing session tonight. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome, Freedom Tribe. Hope everyone's well tonight. If you're watching live, type in hashtag live, and if you're watching the replay, obviously hashtag replay. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how will rising interest rates impact your property investments. And look, a lot of people ask this question, so it's really important we drill down and show you what's going to happen, not just short term, but long term as well, because it's going to have a big impact. That's the fact of it. And if you're not aware yet, there's been roughly a 5% drop nationally in real estate prices so far. Now, are they going to go drop even more? Are they going to go up? What's going to happen? Is the past going to show us what the future's holding? Now, also, we've got David here who's going to be joining us. And David is part of our circle of safety, and he's a finance guru. He's really good. So it's going to be great to get some insights off David. So I'm just going to put David on as well. Okay. David, welcome.
George, how are you? Nice to see you.
Very good, very good. Now, a lot of people asking questions about interest rates. So, and it's interesting what's been happening. So the market nationally has dropped 5%. Now, we had a big upswing of 25% over COVID, which is very quick. It's dropped 5%. And, people are scared at the moment what's happening with interest rates. And what I want to discuss today is where are interest rates going? What's going to happen in the short term? How's it going to affect people's budgets? How's it going to affect the property market? But then I want to talk about long term. And then we're going to go swing back and talk about the past. Because, as Mark Twain says, the past doesn't equal the future, but it rhymes. You know what I mean? It gives you a very strong indication of what's going to happen in the future. And always look at the past and find out what's happening. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do. So the official cash rate at the moment is what, 2.6%?
Correct, 2.6. Yeah. And actually another 25 basis points from a couple of weeks ago from the October rise. So now probably looking around that sort of 2.85% mark.
Yeah, 2.85% mark. And now this is the challenge, and this is where people are getting in trouble. The average rental return in Australia is 3.1%. Right?
Really?
Yeah. So if you get an average property, you're getting 3.1%, but you're going to be paying over 5% now, correct? Because it's 2.85. The banks normally add how much, 2 or 3%?
Yeah, 2.5% is normally the margin. Yeah.
Yep. So they're going to add 2.5%. So therefore, what's going to happen is you're actually paying more than what you're getting in.
Yeah.
So this sort of market, this is a negative cash flow scenario. That's the fact of it. And when you're looking at 3.1% gross rental return compared to a 2.85% RBA standard price plus the 2.5% on top, that is a very negative situation. Heaps.
Yeah.
Right. So, if people buy the wrong property and they're paying over 5% interest, which they will be, they're going to be losing so much money every week. And it's going to be hard financially.
Correct. 100%.
Yeah. Now, APRA have jumped in now, haven't they, and done a few things. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, I mean, APRA's always been an interesting one in the market. Originally, a number of years ago, when the banks were having too many investment loans on their books, they started putting some pressure on the banks to sort of rein that in a little bit. And more recently, around the assessment rates for banks, they asked them to increase the buffer of serviceability from 2.5% to 3%, which again has had some impacts from clients being able to borrow more money and their borrowing capacity has been reduced. So APRA APRA's always interested in what's happening in the market and trying to step in where they can. And they're always tweaking things a little bit. So I'll be interested to see what they try and do next.
Yeah, well, the thing is, with the borrowing capacity going down, that's going to do is that's going to reduce the amount of buyers in the market.
Correct.
But the amount of properties available is getting reduced as well. So sort of balancing out that other part as well. So what's going to happen is buyers are either going to go for a different price property because they really want to buy, or they're going to wait it out. What's the indication? What do you think is going to happen?
I think people are just adjusting their expectations and still wanting to get into the property market, and understanding that if they previously or 6 months ago could have bought a property for 600 or 650,000, as you said, they're really just realigning their expectations and maybe finding a more suitable property at 5 or 550,000 to ensure they still get into the market, but also ensuring that, I guess, their cash flow position is strong and the affordability is there.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is with these interest rates at the moment, you look at Sydney and Melbourne, it costs twice the amount of money to actually have a mortgage than to rent, double.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
rent investing at the moment, for people that are interested, this is the time to do it, because at the moment you're saving so much money by rent investing, and you can make so much more. Because what happens is, you go to most capital cities like Sydney or Melbourne, or when in the blue chip suburbs, and the returns are like 1-2%. They're terrible. So I did this when interest rates were at 9%. I think it's about 14, 15 years ago. So I wanted to live on the beach, but at the time it was 9%. So to get a property at the beach around 1.8 million, it was going to cost me, like probably $180,000 a year.
Yeah.
And that was my income, my whole income from my properties. So great, I've got 10 investment properties. They make me 180 grand a year. I buy this house. Rented a place on the beach, and I rented at $4,000 a year. My landlord was kicking in $130,000, subsidizing my lifestyle on the beach, while I was still investing in property and making money, and I was getting, 4.5 to 5.5% properties return, where he was only getting like 1.2.
And that's what they say. It's always rent where you want to live and buy where you want to invest, and capitalize on the best of both worlds.
Exactly, and I think now is the time to do that. Now, people, what is AFCA? It's actually APRA, but if you want to explain what APRA is.
APRA is the Australian Prudential Regulations Authority, and basically is an external or a third party body that oversees and has direct input into the monetary policy and banking policy within Australia.
Yep.
Sure.
Exactly. So what else is happening in the market at the moment? So nationally, prices are down by 5%, which following at 25% that are going up. But the thing is, this is the way the market operates. The market operates like this. So you get big gains. And then you get a sort of backtrack properties going back. Now, I think we're pretty close to the bottom of the cycle. So because what happened was the reason it rose 25% is near the end of the boom, all these people went a bit nuts and paid way too much, right? They overcapitalized and paid way too much, and now people are going back to normal. And I see this as a sort of like a blow off. When you go buy a pint of beer at the pub, and you got all that fluff at the top.
Yeah.
That's that 5%. They've blown it off, and now it's back to where it should be, right? And so I don't think there's much more of a drop, and there could be another, 5 or 10%. But the thing is, this is the time people need to get into gear and start getting a property before the next boom. Because what I've seen time and time again is people are waiting it out, waiting for price to come back up, and then they come back up like this. And if you're not prepared, if you don't have anything before they come back up, you're going to miss that train again. And I've seen people miss boom after boom after boom after boom because they're waiting on the sidelines. And the whole point is, like, you can't make money out of property if you don't have any.
Correct. And that's right. A lot of people got scared when COVID or just before COVID hit. And, people that bought in late 2019 or early 2020, as you said, have seen more than those 25% gains in property over the last 2 years. So even if you do get a little bit of a leveling out in the playing field, they're still, 30 to 40% up on what they paid for those properties. So yeah, you've got to be ready to go. You've got to have your finances ready. You've got to have your property coaches, selecting properties and be ready to pull the trigger.
Yeah, well, look, this is the interesting thing. I mean, during COVID, the average investor made 25%. Our members, many of our members made 100, 200%, not 25%, but with, double zero at the end. And that's pretty amazing. We really outperformed the market the last 2 years. It was crazy. So I'm really excited that we've done that. And this is the interesting thing. If you go back to the GFC, because the GFC was probably the biggest financial meltdown in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
And from the peak to the trough, property prices fell 5%. That was it.
Yeah.
And that was GFC, which is much worse than what happened recently, because COVID wasn't even a crisis. It was actually, I think, and now what's happening is international students are flooding back in, but one of the other reasons they're flooding back in is because they've got new expanded work rights, right? So we've got new things in place where they can work up to 40 hours now per week. Right, where before they weren't allowed to work. I don't know how much they were allowed to work, but that's going to make a big difference with all the international students coming in, getting jobs, and filling the work shortage, because we've got a massive shortage. And if we look at the unemployment rate, it is a 3.5% at the moment. That is one of the lowest unemployment rates in history, ever. Everyone's got a job. So we've got less properties in the market. Everyone's got a job. The property market's dropped 5%. I predict we're about to hit the bottom. And what happens with property, which is pretty amazing, is very different to Bitcoin and stocks. Because Bitcoin and stocks, they're not very rubbery. When they hit the floor, they hit and go through the floor and go down to zero sometimes. Where property prices are more like a bouncing rubber ball. And when they hit the bottom, they do one thing, it brings momentum and they shoot back up and harder down the other end, which is what happens, which is interesting.
100%. And I think even between, you mentioned obviously the GFC in 2009, and we've had a few sort of mini cycles within that patch between 2009 and 2022 now, where you'll get these occasional dips in the market and people start to think that, the steam's running out of the market and property prices are going to drop. You get a little stabilization for 6 or 12 months, and then the next mini boom starts again. So it's just that ongoing cycle of, property always continues to go up in growth over the long term. And what you mentioned before as well around unemployment rates being at all-time lows, that has a direct correlation between that and people looking for really good quality rental properties, because not everyone's a buyer. People relocate for work all the time and they want to live in a core location with a great rental property. So that starts to push those rental prices and yields through the roof in those particular suburbs, which is fantastic for your investors as well.
Absolutely. We've actually got the lowest property ownership in the history of Australia at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's going to get worse and worse. And we've got a massive shortage of properties, and that's why we need more investors in. Now, this is the one big thing people are talking about, and I want to really set the record straight, because a lot of people are bitching and moaning out there about me, and I'm going to set the record straight because I want everyone to listen carefully about this. Okay, so I've always said to people, what you want is negative gearing, positive cash flow, right? Because that's what you want in your property strategy. And that's part of my strategy, and that's the way we do it, right? What that means is we buy a property, and on paper we lose money, but in real life we make money. Yeah. Now, there's certain times in the marketplace where this is just not possible, right? And this happened back in the 1990s. I think 1990s, the official cash rate, let me have a look. I think it was 17.5.
Yeah, about that, 17, 18%. Yep.
1990, it was 17.5% official cash rate. So
Wow.
now, if you bought a property in 1990, in 7 years it would have doubled in price. However, in 1990s, you had to be negative geared. When I bought properties in the 90s, I was paying $300, $400 negative per week. But did that stop me from investing? No. And those properties have gone on to make me millions and millions of dollars, right? That's the fact of it. But also, I didn't know how to structure things. There's a lot of other stuff as well. But the thing is, the fact of it is that a lot of people are caught up in this. And what I'm telling people to do now is I'm saying, if you buy a property and it's negative cash flow, it's okay, because that's temporary. Because don't look at the short term. People don't get caught up on how much it is per week, because there's a great properties out there that are minus $100 a week.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can afford $100 a week to get a property that's going to double every 7 or 10 years, you would be stupid not to buy it. But then people go, oh, George, you said it has to be positive cash flow. Now, my rules aren't black and white. They're shades of grey. And what you have to do is adjust to the marketplace and know what you're doing and not get caught up in the wrong things, because we're not trying to look for a property that's positive cash flow temporarily right now, because the only properties that are going to be positive cash flow right now are going to be in the middle of whoop whoop, and they're going to be shit properties. So you want a good property, it's going to be minus $100. But if you do it right, minus $100, it's not going to be minus 300 or 400. And there's a lot of investors out there paying minus 400, 500, 600 because they don't know how to structure their loan. They got the wrong property. They're getting 3% return, and they're in a hole. Our investors, we go 4.5% to 5.5% gross rental return. And from that, you can buy properties between $50 and $100 a week.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you can afford it, buy these properties every day, day in, day out, while you can, because they're going to go up in value, because they're gold. They're really good. And that's the whole point. Yeah. So I want people to stop focusing on the wrong things. See, people focus on the wrong things. You know, some people go, oh, I've heard it's good to be near a school. I wanted the property to be in a school. And I'm like, well, do you want a property that's going to double next 7 years? Or do you want a property near a school? Make up your mind. Because every question you should answer, you need to look at the ultimate goal. And that's the only criteria that matter.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And this, look, it's a numbers game. At the end of the day, as long as the affordability is there, and I think you've touched on all the right points. And I've even noticed with my investment properties in the last 6 or 12 months that, you know, I was positively cash flowed on a principal and interest mortgage on some of my investment debt, and now that's my repayments have gone up $800 to $1,000 a month. The property's still going up in value. I've just put my rent up by 20% on one particular property because of what's happened in the shortages of the rental market. So yes, it's still costing me a lot more money than what it was 6 or 12 months ago, but I know that the capital appreciation is there over time. And it also means that the negative gearing aspects are also increasing. So that blow of additional repayments each week or each month does get softened by the additional tax benefits that you can get. And if people are in a position where they would rather get that back on a weekly basis or out of their pay packet, they can do certain things with their account, like an income tax variation, which you know about, George, where instead of getting that lump sum of tax back at the every financial year, you can get it back into your pay packet every week or fortnight and improve that cash flow position on an ongoing basis for you.
See, David, that's a great thing that you said. And what I like to do, guys, is reach out. And if everyone's watching this now, if you want to hear more about ITWV, I've got a special training showing you exactly how to do it with the forms and everything, where you can actually do it yourself or get your accountant. Type in #save tax, and I'll show you how to get your tax back on a weekly basis. We've got members getting $85 a week per property back in their packet from their tax, which, because you've got to understand, between the rich and the rich use post-tax dollars, the poor use pre-tax dollars. We're helping you work like the rich and get it post-tax. Pre-tax, not post-tax. There you go. There you go. So that's the important thing. Now, the RBA have been pretty heavy-handed.
It's an understatement, George.
Yeah, they've been pretty heavy-handed, and, you know, they don't really know what they're doing. That's the problem, because, you know, I've said this and I'll say it again. I believe the inflation in Australia is to do with supply chain, and the supply chain's fixed now, right? So, you know, the cost of services hasn't gone up, only the cost of materials and goods. And now we've fixed that. So it's an interesting type of inflation that we've got. And raising interest rates doesn't solve supply chain problems. That's the challenge. So I think I wish they would sort of look at the real problem and try to fix that, because they could fix it by fixing the supply chain, but not by putting interest rates up. But they've gone nuts and they've really hiked it over and over again. Now they've gone at, they've just hiked it, what was it, 0.25, was it?
Correct, 0.25 a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
Instead of 0.5, which is great. So what does that mean? Does that mean they're sort of saying, okay, this is near the end, or does that mean we're going to just slow down a bit, or what do you think the RBA are thinking?
Yeah, it's interesting, George. So one of the comments that I heard a couple of nights ago was that they slowed down in October so that they could do I guess a more progressive or easy interest rate rise over time. So there's still expectations that next month in November that the rate rise will probably go up another 25 basis points, and then the Reserve Bank would be really silly to do anything over the Christmas period because
they never do.
And then they don't meet in January, so obviously nothing's going to happen in the first part of 2023. And then there's probably some expectations of rates going up a little bit further in the first part of 2023. But what I think is going to be really interesting is that the data in the housing market and inflation and so forth is about 3 months behind what the Reserve Bank puts into place at their meetings. So we're really only starting to see the effects of those interest rate rises from June, July, August, and we've had a couple since then. So I'd like to think that the data that's going to flow through in the first quarter of 2023 is going to show that what the Reserve Bank has already put into place has had a profound impact on, property to an extent. And as you said, things around inflation's already dropping, albeit at a rate higher than what they'd like it to be. So I'd like to think that we're going to see a little bit more stabilisation with the rates in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, look, the RBA generally what they do, and I've seen them do this before, is they go in and they rise, they put interest, this happened just before 2008, I think. They put all the interest rate hikes in, and then they came in with a samurai sword and chopped them all down again really quick as well. And I think both directions, they're going too fast. I would like to see the RBA raise them slowly, but put them down slowly as well. So give people time to adjust. Because the problem is when they're, rate rise right after rate rise, it panics the market, and it just really, there's not enough time to find out how it affected the economy. And also when they're slashing it, same thing. And what we really want is a stable economy that's with our economy going up, but we don't need these ups and downs. And I think a lot of people are saying 2023, they're going to start slashing rates as well. What are your thoughts of that?
Yeah, I think we touched on this a few weeks ago when we did our other recent session, in that the fixed rate indication is often a really good idea about where variable rates are going to end up. And so what we're seeing is a massive fluctuation between what banks are predicting for the 2, 3 and 4 year fixed rates. Some have got them at 6%, some have got them below 5%. So I think you're right in saying I don't think anyone really knows where rates are going to end up. But I agree 100% in saying that the Reserve Bank probably should have acted a lot sooner than what they did by putting rates up in April. It probably should have started towards the back end of 2021 when property prices were surging, inflation was there, we were out of the woods predominantly with COVID. And part of the reason rates were so low, well, all of the reason rates were at all-time low was because of COVID. And the Australian economy bounced back so quickly from COVID that the Reserve Bank didn't have time or didn't implement these rate rises to cater for the level of spending that people had been doing over that period of time. So I think we're still going to be at the same point that we would have been, but it just would have been, as you said, a more slowly method as opposed to this sledgehammer attack that the Reserve Bank's done in the last 5 months.
Absolutely. We're running out of time, so we've got time to answer one question. Someone said, when is the best time to invest for property considering the inflation? Well, look, I'll give you the best time to invest. Best time to invest in property is 20 years ago. Now, that's honestly true. But the second best time is right now. The thing is, you need to buy, the sooner you buy property, the better, because it works as in compounding interest. And I did an experiment today. I want to talk about a little experiment. I went to Rundle Mall today with my videographer and a microphone. And I was at the mall's balls, and as people came past, I decided I was going to give some money away. Right? But I was going to do a pay it forward. So what I did is I walked up to the first person and said, hi, I've got $1 here. Should I give you $1 or should I double it and give it to the next person? And she goes, why don't you double it and give it to the next person? I go, great. So I go to the next person. I go, I've got $2 here. Should I give it to you or double it and give it to the next person? They go, next person. So I keep going and I get to $64. As the tradies walk past, I go, hey, should I give you guys $64? Should I double it, give it to the next person? They go, double it, give it to the next person. Then I said to the camera, $128, I reckon someone's going to probably take this. So I tried to find someone that probably deserves it. I saw this lady with a pram with 2 kids, and I thought, she looks like she can deserve a bit of money. I'll ask her. So I came up to her and I said, hey, should I give you $128 or should I double it and give it to the next person? She looks at me and goes, give me $128? Yeah, you should. I go, excellent. Here you go. She goes, what for? And I go, because I want to give it to you. It's pay it forward. Well done. Anyway, I said high five, and we got it on camera and gave her the $128 and made her day. It was awesome, but made my day. I was so happy for the rest of the day. I really enjoyed it. So it was a lot of fun. And then I was asking people, I was saying to people, can you finish the sentence for me? Safe as. And most people said houses. One lady said a man. So I don't know what happened then. And then I was asking people, what do you prefer, shares or property? And everyone's saying property. And I'll go, why? They go, because I've got property. I've made money out of property. So that was good. And then one lady goes, shares. And I go, do you have any shares? She goes, no. And I go, okay, well, you don't really believe it, do you? Like, there you go. So that's what happened. It was a lot of fun. I thought I'd try something different for have a bit of fun and just, talk to people. We're going to produce a few little videos of this. I like to get out there and meet the people and see what people are thinking and doing. But now is the best time to buy property, definitely, especially because we're about to hit the bottom and bounce up. But the key is don't buy willy-nilly. Make sure that you buy the right property, and you really need to buy in the top 200 in Australia. How can you change or turn your place of residence into a rent investing place if I bought it with first home grant? I think that's for you.
That's a good question. So there's certainly some rules and regulations around if you bought a property under a first home buyer deposit scheme. You normally have to move into the property and live in the property for at least 12 months before you can choose to move out and use that property as an investment property moving forward. So just double check around when you settle on the property and make sure you've covered off on that criteria before, moving on and starting to use it as an investment.
That's right. Make sure you don't do it before then. You don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, correct.
Yep. Okay, guys. So we got to get to our inner circle with our black belt members. So, David, I just want to say thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us tonight. It's fantastic. Your knowledge is always great. You're really on top of everything. It's fantastic.
Thanks, George. Always a pleasure to be on, and looking forward to the next meeting.
So, Freedom Tribe, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to know how to do an ITWV, how to get money back each week from the tax department, and seriously, we got people making $85 a week per property. Type in #SaveTax, and our team will send you the details on this training where I go through all of it and even supply the forms for you so you can do it yourself. I'm all about empowering people because our unstoppable mission is to empower 10,000 people to create financial freedom through property using the Markoski method. Thanks for joining us. We're going to be here same bat time, same bat channel next week. Thanks, David. See you in the next meeting.
Thanks, George.